Hello, and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I'm your host, Chris Becker, and I'm excited to have you join us. Whether you're new to the amazing and growing alcohol-free community or someone who is already familiar, we hope you enjoy this program. This is where you can hear from some people that we think are making a real difference, whether as brewers or producers of amazing beverages, influencers in the community, authors, storytellers, and I'm sure more. We aim to break it down and bring it all together. Our goal is simple: to build awareness about this great community and help make alcohol-free fun, easy, and tasting great. So here we go. Enjoy. Hey there. Welcome to this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. I'm excited to introduce you in a few minutes to Laura Silverman and what she's been doing in the space. I will do a full intro when we get to that, but I hope you enjoy. Okay. Hey there. This is Chris Becker, and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I am excited to introduce Laura Silverman, who is here with us today. She's worn many hats and has been part of this movement for a long time. We were just chatting before the episode, even before, certainly before Better Roads existed, not that it's been around that long. And there's been a lot of interesting things happening past, present, and future, and we're going to get a chance to talk about that. But before we do, Laura is the founder of Zero Proof Nation, a global resource which ties into a lot of the things that we're seeing in the trends, as well as founder of Booze Free in DC, which is where Laura is based, and allows people to celebrate and try to enjoy leisure activities, not necessarily always in and around and surrounded by alcohol. So with that, welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm really excited to be here, and I love Better Roads, so all roads led us to here, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I know we've crisscrossed and probably chatted and things over the years, but we've been busy doing various things. So I'm excited to finally get a chance to sit down and really kind of dig in a lot more ways and see where those crisscrosses have happened and will continue to happen.
Yeah.
Before we dive in, I'd love for you to give our listeners a chance to hear a bit more about your story, your background, before and even how the non-alc kind of category came into your world, and what you've been doing with your startups.
Yeah. So, gosh, I'm going to age myself here, but I've been part of the industry before there was much of an industry, right. I guess, before there was a renaissance, and certainly before there was any kind of like non-alc culture to speak of that we're really living in right now. Why do I care so much, though? Why is this important to me? And this is not going to be a whole drunkalog episode, but it's important. It's Sure. important for me to share a little bit of my story and how it led me to being so passionate about the non-alc space, because we know there's a whole sort of sobriety spectrum out there of people who are interested in non-alcoholic beverages, ranging from someone who's not drinking tonight because they're the designated driver, they have a big meeting in the morning, or whatever, training for a marathon. Right. They're the dry January folks, sober October, anyone dry July, which is where, we are now. So anyone who's taking a break for a month. Then we've got our pregnant cohort who have 9 months to not drink. And then we've got people who might be doing like 1 year, no beer, or, a year off from drinking. And then we've got the people who, for whatever reason, they are alcohol-free lifers, and they could be medically abstaining because they're just allergic to it. They could be observing a religion that, right. precludes them from drinking. And then there are all the folks that are either in recovery or straight edge, or just don't feel like drinking anymore and just celebrate a life without alcohol. But there's just so many different reasons for why someone might not drink alcohol. Right. Yeah. And I happen to fall into the lifer category. But before I was a sober lifer, I was definitely a binge drinker. Yeah. And for quite a short amount of years, honestly, it was only 6 years. It got progressively worse. I started when I was 18 and I ended when I was 24 after a couple of hospitalizations for alcohol poisoning and a lot of just a lot of consequences and heartache. And I didn't have an off switch, and I wasn't in a landscape where there were any sort of avenues for socializing that didn't require alcohol or required less of it. There wasn't this sort of Gen Z, because there wasn't really Gen Z. Gen Z was like in elementary school when this was going on, So I was in my early 20s, and there were just no options for anyone who wanted to drink less. At the time, I didn't really want to drink less, but maybe if I was in some sort of landscape where there were a multitude of options and it was celebrated to do whatever you wanted to do, where I was coming up, it was, the college culture, and then the just post grad drink heavy, like we're adults now, we can do this, we can handle our liquor. Well, I couldn't, and I ended up seeking professional help, and I'm really glad that I did it out of my own accord and no one forced me into it.
Yeah, good for you. That's amazing.
But it was not easy, and it was definitely also, I mean, really for the first 10 years of my sobriety, where we are today recording, as of tomorrow, it'll be 16 years for me.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad we got a chance to do this today.
Crazy. So by the time we're all listening to this, it'll have been a little bit of time since I celebrated 16 on July 14th. But so it's my sweet 16. My sobriety can drive now. It's going to be a junior in high school. It's like it's back talking to me. It's growing up. But again, like we're talking from 2007 really until about, honestly, 2017, maybe a little bit before that. I was the odd person out at countless social occasions. We read these articles now where there's like dry weddings, or definitely like an alcohol-free bar at a wedding, or, you don't have to toast with, like, you can toast with naughty, or you can toast, but like, again, where I was, it was just soda, water, or juice for people, quote, like me, end quote. And I had a fire within me that I was just like, this can't be the only way it is. Now, I did not produce any beverages. I'm not a beverage producer. So I tip of the hat to everyone who's actually tinkering in their kitchens and find something that works, or, is collaborating with winemakers or distillers or beer brewers, whatever. Like, there can't be a culture of this, and I can't document a culture of this if there aren't individual producers, individual shops, individual people to movement. So I'm just sort of the journalist, one of the journalists of it. But I was just, always seeking options when I was socializing and advocating in the places that I was. And again, you mentioned that I'm in the DC area. I've been here since 2005. So I would either always look for places that it was hard to know what has a non-alc option, what doesn't. You ask someone for a mocktail, it's going to come back kind of like this pineapple juice laden thing. And so I drank a lot of Diet Coke and lime in the beginning. And I didn't know anything about craft drinking because I was a binge drinker for the effect. I wanted to get wasted for me, and I didn't want to actually like have the ritual of a drink. I didn't know about cocktails or craft beer or like beautiful wines. I didn't know about and of course there are all these new botanicals and new types of categories out there, functional beverages, that just didn't exist. So as I started to see a burgeoning rise in these beverages, whether they were on menus or if you could get them direct to consumer, like via a website of a particular brand. I think one of the first brands that I really kind of got on the bandwagon with, there were two, is Clean Cause, which is like a sparkling yerba mate.
Okay.
And 50% of their proceeds go back to the recovery community and provide scholarships for people who are who need it. And so I really kind of identified that with that, because in the beginning of my whole journey, at least with like online blogging, I was very much a part of the sort of like alternative recovery community.
Got it.
And then Hop Tea was the other brand, which I was like, this is really cool. It feels like it's, and I didn't know what beer was, but like it had the hoppiness of a beer, but it was tea and it was fun. And again, we're in this era where like there was no such thing as a non-alcoholic bottle shop. Nope. You could get things, maybe if you're lucky, your local grocery store might have a couple of like more fun options than just, it was like the kombucha era.
Yeah.
So I still drink kombucha, but it was like just all you could find in the refrigerated aisles was like just walls and walls of kombucha. And for me, I kind of struggled in the beginning. Like I hadn't put any ounce of alcohol in my system for years. So the first time I tried kombucha, even though it's trace amounts, some brands are built a little differently than others,
Sure.
even though they're not like hard booches. They're just
Right.
regular, but so that took some getting used to. Anyway, so around like 2018, 2019, I had met Chris Marshall from Sandsbar,
Yes.
and we brought the concept of Sandsbar to DC a few times together.
Cool.
And
Yeah, that's great.
and I had this idea for like, so I'd built a blog called the Sobriety Collective, which was like featuring creatives in recovery or who would just consider themselves sober. And I featured different people on the blog and on the Instagram. And I was like, I want to do something like this for this newer sort of non-alcoholic beverage space that seems to be coming up. But I didn't know how much planning ahead I should do, how much like, actual market research. I just kind of wanted to do it. And Chris encouraged me. He's like, don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Yes.
Just do it.
That's a great saying.
So he really encouraged me, and I started it in late 2019. That was, I think it was October when I made my first post, and just 5-6 months later, our whole like world would completely kind of crash around us. Yeah. But it was pre-pandemic. It was pre-bottle shop. It was pre-booze-free bar besides Sandsbar and a couple Listen Bar pop-ups from time to time in New York City. And before there were any Meet the Makers series, I was doing these like interviews with the few founders that were out there.
Yeah.
Like I did Hop Tea, I did Clean Cause, I did a few others. This was when Athletic Brewing was still kind of a local, or at least like a regional brewery, like way before it became national, way before it became international. So that's kind of where I found myself. And then when the pandemic happened and I kind of saw everything around us happening, and people's drinking habits were going in one of two directions, either drinking less, they don't have social pressures,
on both ends,
or, drinking more because of just everything. We were all sort of witnessing the shifts that were happening around us. And I just started documenting what was going on, and it's just kind of grown exponentially since then. But I started it because I have this deep care for options for everyone. I don't want people to feel like they're the odd person out at any kind of social gathering or at home. Like, why should they just have to, Netflix at home with water or soda? Like, they should be able to have, crack open a cold beer or a glass of wine or have a cocktail if that's what they want. It's not necessarily for everyone, but it can be for any adult out there. Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I like it, and I like a lot of commonalities just in terms of in the movement in general, but the idea of being kind of very open to all the various paths that people are on, and giving this as a choice to all of them. It's not kind of reserved for anyone in particular. Talk to me a bit about that. So it kind of brings us up more into the, I guess, mid-pandemic, post-pandemic, Zero Proof Nation.
Where are we?
Where are we? We're somewhere in kind of the middle of that. People's alcohol consumption was definitely going in two directions. Restaurant alcohol sales went to zero. Liquor store sales tripled. So you're seeing kind of these massive kind of seismic pushes and pulls. And out of that, or during that, Zero Proof Nation came to be. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, Zero Proof Nation started as just an Instagram feed in late 2019, and I built a very basic website that included the Instagram feed and a beverage directory. Because again, before there was a Better Roads, before there were any of the other bottle shops out there, there was no real place that you could find all of the categories of non-alcoholic beverages that were out there and kind of discover from there. So I wanted a place where people could, if they're looking for beers, they could find, like Athletic or Wellbeing or Stereo or wines or whatever. And again, the directory was like really tiny because that was where we were. We had a few categories and we had a few brands. And I started really focusing just on the US because that's where I am. That's what I knew best. Yeah. And again, just a lot of research. But as we were kind of getting into the bulk of 2020 and into 2021. And I saw that there were bottle shops now, both brick and mortar and e-commerce. I saw that there were the booze-free bar concept definitely took a hit because our coming together in any kind of social way was very iffy and dicey for a while. But when things started opening up again, people really were craving that social connection. And so more of those pop-ups were happening. And so I just started to document more of what was going on. And I eventually turned it into a bit of an international platform. So I've just done like copious amounts of research.
How do you do all that?
I don't know. I comb the internet all the time. And now I'm getting a lot of crowdsourced things. People are starting to notice that I exist and are sending me things to submit to the map or to submit to directories. But I was just doing a lot of my own research, looking on social media, looking on LinkedIn, looking on just lots and lots of SEO type searches, and finding myself like on a European blog, and then doing some translating, Google Translate, to find what the places were near them. So I've put in a full-time job and then some to this, which is unpaid right now. It's unpaid. Yeah. So we'll talk about that later. But I wanted there to be, again, all of the information that I have on my website exists in some way, shape, or form on the internet. But am I going to want someone to spend 3 hours trying to find something that might exist in Johannesburg, South Africa, or Tokyo, or have to like do Google Translate to find where they're going to go on a trip? No, I wanted it to be a one-stop shop, if you will, without the shop aspect, of where you can find bottle shops, whether they're e-commerce or brick and mortar, where you can find bars, whether they're pop-ups, mobile mixologies, or brick and mortar, and where you can sort of discover brands. And so it happened, in some ways it just happened like all at once overnight. And I was just like, oh, there's so much stuff to document. And then in other ways, it's just been this like glacial rise and increase, sort of like our industry itself. It's always been on the rise, but like with the pandemic, we just saw it shoot straight up.
And I think sometimes we even think, oh, because you've lived and breathed that for so long, that's been going on for quite some time, which is true. But I think still to some extent, even post-pandemic, the vast majority of people still aren't aware that there's a lot of education and discovery still to do. And I liked what you said about kind of making it easy, because that's kind of one of the things that around this pretty well exactly the same time I was thinking like it's hard to find these products. It's hard to, and then even if you know about them, how do you get them? And then even if you can get them, how many of them do you want to order and pay for? Because will you like it or not? Because it's all so new. So a lot of what you're talking about, I think, resonates and is consistent and is it works well with kind of some of the stuff we're doing, which is, I know we talk or you talk with folks on the team and that a lot. So which is great. So I'm hoping we get to do a lot more of that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to dig in more to, as the startup, Zero Proof Nation, Booze Free in DC, as founder, you talked about monetization and things like that. I know you've been out in the scene for a long time. Hear a bit more about that, as well as what you're seeing for the future. So we will be right back. Wanted to spend a minute and tell you a bit about our Better Without mobile app. We talked a bit about it on the show, but it's really a great resource for people that want to learn and find out where they can try and experience all the great beverages that are coming into the space of better for you beverages, particularly non-alc and alcohol-free. This includes beer, wine. You can search by different categories, sparkling, RTDs, find out descriptions, photography, calories, everything you want to know, and best of all, where to buy it based on your location. Or you can search different places and find out all the different restaurants and stores where you can find the different products that you love, or go online, obviously, to betterroads.com, but also other sites that we share links to let you know where you can get different products. So it's really anything that's out there in the space. It gives you one resource to learn and educate and test and try. It allows you to share. So whether you like a location that has some really good beverages that maybe others who are experimenting with drinking less or whatever want to learn about, you can share it right off the app. You can share products right off the app to all your friends and any channel you want. So I really encourage you to check it out. It's betterwithout.app, or if you go to betterroads.com, you'll see in our community a place to learn more about the app and download it. It's free, and give it a try. We hope you like it. Thanks. Okay, we're back with Laura Silverman, and we were just chatting about all of the things that got Laura to where she is today, and really that resource intensive effort of pulling together all of the content and materials and she has. But then let's put on that founder's hat.
Okay.
You've got a life to live, bills to pay. How do you take that, all of this great, yeah, believe me, we could have a whole side conversation with that, but how, with all of this happening, you've got traction, people know who you are, you've got kind of a critical mass. What are you seeing in terms of you as a founder, both for Zero Proof Nation, but Booze Free in DC? Kind of where do you see yourself going with these organizations, with your startups, and then how that aligns with the trends you're seeing in the industry?
Well, I'm just going to put my pie in the sky dream out there and see if we can manifest it into reality, because what I would like more than anything is some sort of network television show, whether it's Netflix, Food Network, Travel Channel, whatever, or I could do a YouTube channel and still do pretty well with that. But what I really want to do is bring this global map that I've just launched with all alcohol-free establishments. Again, not necessarily places that you can find a non-alc beverage on the menu, but just all the booze-free bars in the world, all the pop-ups and mobile mixologies, all the non-alcoholic bottle shops, whether they're e-commerce or brick and mortar. Where can you find them when you're planning travel? And how can you sort of explore different countries and different cities? And so I want to turn that into a show. And I think that would be like my dream.
Like Anthony Bourdain, but
like Anthony Bourdain with a happier ending. With a happier ending, and that's exactly the model that I'm kind of imagining. But in the more immediate future, because that could take a couple years if it's happening, and I'd like for it to happen. In the more immediate future, I'm hoping to do some partnerships with airlines or hotel chains or Airbnb or some sort of regional travel magazines. I don't have the connections out there, and I'm putting a call out to anyone who might, because I really think that this global map could take its shape and form in a different amount of ways. It doesn't necessarily have to just be the Google map that I created, which is useful in and of itself. Absolutely. But if someone, let's just say like a regional magazine from like a where LA or Foders like New York City or whatever. I'm not necessarily the New York travel tour guide or whatever. We could tap into some local talent there, but I've put all of this stuff out there. So maybe it's like putting together a city guide, or maybe it's, I don't know. That's the problem with being a founder who's also a creative, but not having a business mind.
Right.
Because I have all these ideas. I've created something. I mean, I have to give myself some credit. I'm doing things, but I don't know how the machine works. I really don't. Right. And I'm not, money is it's energy, it's currency. It's not evil. It's also not like, it is what it is. Yeah. But I didn't start my platforms for financial gain. I started them because I wanted a resource like that. And I wanted other people to have access to that resource. What a lot of people don't know who aren't like us, who know that what it takes to, put websites out there and there's not just like the monetary cost of time, but it costs a lot of money to maintain a resource on the internet. You're paying rent on the internet, and you're, so I don't really know the machinery of how I'm going to get to X, Y, and Z, but I do know that I want more people to have access to the tools that I have put out there in the world, and sometimes more access could also. I think
with that, you
know.
Keep doing what you're doing. I don't know either. I don't know either. Except I know when you find yourself in the middle. There was a Winston Churchill quote: when you find yourself in the middle of hell, not that you are, just keep going. Perseverance, persistence. Babe Ruth had a quote, it's hard to beat a person who doesn't give up. So I think
that's right. I mean, that's exactly it. And every single founder out there, every single person who's made a brand, business owners like you, I'm sure you faced failure multiple times. I'm sure
it's part of the process.
It's part of the process, and you can't become successful if you give up halfway through. I think the true like manner of success is not giving up, but it's also like let's not sugarcoat it. It's really hard sometimes. It's really hard because I don't have any kind of I'm not selling anything. And I think like I'm going to leave the bottle shops to the people who have the bottle shops. I say that now. Anything could change in a year. I don't want to open my own thing, but
I just know a lot, and you know a lot of people, and you know a lot about the products, and you know a lot.
I was a judge with Johnny at the World Alcohol Free Awards in London. So like I know a few things.
And also these experiences, like it goes back to something you were saying at the beginning with, you could, list off a lot of the different scenarios of people that for various reasons would enjoy this category of products, or more broadly than obviously the makers are critical. We wouldn't be here without them, but also the lifestyle that it enables. So when you think about that, I think, you just keep going, you make more connections, you come and talk, I'd love to hear your story and try to share it with more people, keep doing what you're already doing. I think it's whether we were doing this or writing software code, I think many of the challenges are the same, and a lot of it is about momentum and networking and continuing to put forth your message around where you see yourself adding value. And then it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. And like you said, if you stop just before, then all you know for sure is that you're going to fail. So keep going. We've got a lot of people cheering for you. Tell me more about, kind of play that forward a bit. So let's say there was a show or was some of this content, and you're starting to see some affiliations and monetization there. What would be some of those first shows? Like, okay, you're ready to go. What are some of the things, and maybe it's things you've already done, because I know you've experienced and traveled and met with a lot of the various bottle shops or bars or things like that. But if you were going to start planning your season, what would be some of those ones you'd really want to dig into? Is it certain countries? Is it certain people? Is it certain places? Like,
the diplomat's daughter in me, because my dad was a U.S. diplomat, a career diplomat, and I lived in Egypt, Nicaragua, Peru, and El Salvador in addition to the U.S. So I speak Spanish pretty fluently, and I have a little bit of Egyptian Arabic to get me around.
Wow.
I love travel. I just haven't traveled quite enough as a quote grown up. But the diplomat's daughter in me would say, everyone, I would want to meet everyone, interview everyone. If I can be a little more selective, I would love to spend more time in the UK, because that's kind of sort of that's where things started. And a lot of people in the mainstream don't realize that the UK kind of, is the genesis of Dry January. Before there was Zanzibar and Listen Bar, there was a thing called Redemption Bar in London, which now is a full service bar, has full proof, low proof, and no proof, and food, but it was the only non-alcoholic bar out there for a while. And then of course we've got organizations like Club Soda, who I love so much. That's where the World Alcohol Free Awards came out of. Alcohol Change UK, and a lot of things that are going on. Of course,
and a lot of makers.
Like Seedlip is arguably one of the grandfathers of this beverage movement. Right. They saw an opportunity long before so many other people did, and so I always tip my hat to them. But there are so many options now. So I would love to do an episode or two on the UK. That would
be a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, kind of start at the beginning, meet some makers, go to, maybe go to Scotland and visit the Faragia. I don't know how to say it, but that distillery, and go to some of there's so many like alcohol-free beers out there, so like go to some breweries, but then also just like meet with community people and have parties. You caught me, I'm glad you asked.
I like that start. I think the UK would be a great place to start.
I have to start planning. Yeah, go to different restaurants that have like, I know that you spend some time in the UK, from time to time, and there's this great restaurant I went to with Johnny when I was in London called Dishoom.
Okay.
Is absolutely fantastic Indian food, and they've got a whole menu of non-alc cocktails on there that are like craftfully made, intentionally made, and it's no big deal. It's just like it's just there
Yeah.
among everything, and they also have like a separate menu that you can have, like, and I forgot what they call it, but it's like some sort of cute kitschy name.
Right.
And there's so many places out there that have those options on the menu, but just to discover the culture and kind of what I envision more than anything is like getting a taste of a place,
Yeah.
getting that feel of a country or feel of a city, sort of like Anthony Bourdain would do with his food, and like meeting people, meeting locals, meeting experts,
Yeah.
but also being about that particular like niche. So
Yeah, I think there's so much you
I
can do
want
with
it to
that.
be about
Yeah.
non-alc, but I also want it to be a flavor of wherever I go. So the UK for sure. I mean, New York is kind of like this hub, which I've not been to yet. And here's why. It's the last place I ever drank heavily and was hospitalized.
Yes.
And I have a lot of sticky energy around
New York
City.
has a vibe to it, like having
But
some similar background as you when it comes to the history of this,
um,
why we do this. New York definitely has a bit of that dimension, which can be a bit
yeah,
intimidating and
but it
scary.
also is the sort of one of the meccas of the alcohol-free revival right now, and so I'm hoping to go sometime in
Yeah,
August, take
that's
a little
great.
trip,
Yeah, you
and I would
definitely
love
should, and definitely let us know if you're coming. We
I
could
would love
do a
to go to
tour.
Connecticut to visit you, but
Yeah,
also to visit, my buddy, my buddy. I mean, we're not like besties, but Bill Schufelt and the gang. Like, I don't know how far the brewery is from
they're not far. So yeah, I'm half in New York and half in Connecticut, and a lot of those places are right in between. They're in
Nice.
Milford, Connecticut, and Stratford, Connecticut, which is just down the
Okay,
road, and it's all
and you're
on
in
the train
Madison,
line. And we're in
correct?
Madison, just a
Madison.
bit
Okay.
further.
I've actually I have been to Connecticut once. That's where New Haven is, correct?
Correct. It's all in
I,
around that area.
okay.
You got it.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of getting flavor. LA is finally catching up. Of course, I would love to do an episode in my hometown, my backyard of DC,
Yep,
because we've got like great players like
for
Derek
sure.
Brown,
Yep.
and then all of the amazing like bars and restaurants that are finally catching up. And we've got some local brands too that I will shout out right now:
Yeah, do
Mocktail
it.
Club, Element Shrub, and Nope, which I believe you carry all of on
Yes.
Better Roads.
We've been going through a process where we kind of did a pivot and we had to shrink a little bit, and we've now expanded back with a strategic partner. We're getting our orders delivered out of California and Connecticut, and we've been able to really start ramping up a lot of those, and we hope to continue to keep on that path. So we've been excited about finally turning that corner, and now we're doing a significant expansion of the products that are available on the site in one form or another. So
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that makes sense to have, those two coasts so that, the middle is always covered by one or the other, and then you've got
and then you
the
can
two
cover
coasts as well.
right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the dream. But
That's awesome.
I still haven't even done any kind of like press release on this map that I launched. It's mostly just word of mouth and
well, it's great. I know we've looked at it a lot and we use it, and would love to figure out ways that we can help populate that with you and vice versa. So it's great to have, someone like you who's out there connecting, kind of looking at the ways in which you can take the information about the products, the makers, and the places you can get them, but actually kind of take it that last mile, where I think, as I said, I still think the vast majority of people, they might have heard about this or that, but don't have a full understanding of that. And
we're still scratching
without
at the
what you're
main
doing, exactly. So without what you're doing, it's really helping us move things forward a lot faster and take this to the mainstream, which I think is hopefully what's going to be happening over the next 5+ years in the US, and catch up with what is kind of already a bigger trend in the UK and elsewhere. So Laura, thank you for telling us a bit about this, telling us about your journey, telling us about your startups and as a founder, what some of the things you're working through and what your plans are for the future.
Oh, thanks, Chris. It was a treat, and I just have to say, I love Better Roads, and you all are a pioneer. You've been here, I want to say, since August of 2020. Is that right?
It was around that time we started. Yeah, things
Yeah.
kind of picked up. We bouncing around ideas before that.
Of course.
But absolutely. So, and it's been great to interact and know what you've been doing and seeing how you're evolving, and hopefully being able to support and continue to work together going forward.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Take care.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. We welcome any suggestions or ideas for this podcast and other content that we share with the Better Roads community. So please reach out to us on social media, on our site at betterroads.com, or via email at hello@betterroads.com. And it's been great to be with you here all together. Take care.